Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Gotchard episode 12. So again, continuing coverage of the series, as if I would have stopped at episode 10, I would have stopped right before stuff started happening. And stuff is happening in this episode. Now, again, I've gotten complaints that these reviews are too repetitive with some of my complaints. There will admittedly be a couple points that I'm going over I've gone over before, but just because this episode is highlighting some flaws, I do want to be clear here at the top. I think this was one of the strongest, actually probably the strongest episode of the series, and I didn't hate it or anything, and there's going to be some positives, but I did want to lay out some of the negatives first, just because I end on a positive note, just because I think that this episode being good highlighted that even though the episode was good, it would be better if the series was better overall. Mainly because you have this kind of high-stakes episode where the villains really come out full force. We had last week with that inspector lady revealing that she was evil, and her motivation is basically just that she wants to open the dark door and have access to more powerful forbidden alchemy. And then she gets betrayed by the villains three, the sisters, who just disintegrate her. And, Hotaro's like, how could you do that? He's like, she was your friend. He's like, because I'm a Toku villain. I'm against comrades, and you're for them. Don't you get it? A lot of generic Toku dialogue in this. But the thing is it's this big dramatic bit where you have Sabi, I think is his name. I think this was the first time I learned this dude's name. Probably forget it later. But he is the one that gets selected by them to become Kamen Rider Dread with this driver that they've created using human malice. And effectively takes him over and forces him to fight. And he's been absorbing the powers to create negative copies of all of Gotchard's powers. And it's really big and dramatic, and he beats the hell out of Gotchard in one of the most satisfying moments in Rider history. It really reminded me of like a slasher movie when you have a character that's just a total douche because they know that it's going to be satisfying when they kill him off. It's very dramatic, and the villains are getting the upper hand. And it very much so reminded me of Ninja and Saber. Ninja in the sense that when Ninja would have good episodes, in particular actually near the end of the series, it would give me a similar feeling where I'm like, this is actually a pretty good episode on paper. Like, it's entertaining, there's good stuff happening, but because I'm not invested in the characters and story, it doesn't hit as hard. You can have an episode that's almost exactly the same be placed in a series like Gotchard or Ninja, hit differently than one in a series like Build or Kara Major for me, where if I'm invested, the episode feels even better because I'm actually invested and I feel like I'm pulled into the world rather than just objectively being like, oh, this is pretty good, but I don't really care about what's happening because I don't care about any of the characters. And I say Saber too because they're laying down a lot of this stuff of like tell, don't show, where the stakes are meant to be really high of like, this guy's our friend and he's being hurt. And it's like, I don't feel any of the bond with that because they haven't worked to build that up. That's the kind of the way I felt with Saber at the beginning of the series in particular, where they're like, oh yeah, these three are really bonded, we're really bonded. And then when, what the hell was Saber's name? Who cares? When he supposedly betrayed Toma, when he supposedly betrayed them, like it was supposed to be dramatic, but because they hadn't shown me the bond between those characters, it had no weight. And that's what I felt with this one. Is like Hotaro is being so dramatic, like, you're my best friend, Sabi. I'm gonna see you, Kenny's. And it's like, dude, you've been friends with him for 5 minutes. Like, literally, the most time you spent with him was in the previous episode. And other than that, the dude showed up like 2 other times and was like, I talked through an iPad. They laid like no groundwork for this besides the previous episode. So the way it was shot with Hotaro doing his Toku overacting and just the cinematography and the music, you would have you thinking that this was a devastating best friend character for 50 episodes, when in reality it was just the previous episode that they started bonding, which almost gave it a feel of a parody. It also reminded me of Dino Force Brave, where that is like just distilling the Toku experience down to the core beats to sell toys. And this was kind of what it was like. It was like check mark of like, this is drama, but like there's no build up to it. Also, funnily enough, reminding me of Go Busters versus Go Busters, when they made fun of overreacting to Toku deaths with Green Hippopotamus. And also reminded me of, I'm trying to remember the name of the channel, it's like RDC World, I want to say, a guy named Mark who does these funny parody videos. He does a lot of funny anime parody videos, and he like parodies like anime tropes, like when you find out you're a side character. I thought about his video where he talks about like how anime characters build friendships really fast, where it's like you met this dude 5 minutes ago and he's like, you're my best friend. Like, that's what it felt like, where he's like, I can't give up on you. I was like, you're a friend. I'm like, dude, you've known him 5 minutes. He's basically a person that you were sitting with at a Starbucks. So I sound like I'm being really negative, but it's just funny to me that it's like, this is almost funny. It almost feels unintentionally hilarious how dramatic he's being for somebody he's known for 5 minutes. So it just lacks that dramatic weight because I don't care about anything that's happening in regards to the characters. And if anything, I'm rooting for the villains. To get to the positives, though, like again, I just wanted to state that at the beginning, because that goes over a lot of points I brought up before, that the show hasn't done the work to invest me in it, and I think that having this dramatic moment feel like that just doesn't feel right. I do have to say, though, there is some positives about the episode. Like I said, just structurally, it was pretty good. I think the villains, I think I've discovered, are my favorite part of the show. They're pretty well delivered. They at least show some competence. They really showed up in this episode as a serious threat, taking out everybody with not only Kamen Rider Dread, who's a great suit. It was great to see Dread in action. I'm in part disappointed that we didn't introduce just a cool new character, but there is admittedly something cool about this character of Sabi being taken over. Even though we had this manufactured drama over their bond, this character in particular, they chose him because they observed that he was smart and would know how to use the chemis in an effective way in battle. And then not to mention, because he has a problem communicating, he kind of lacks a voice or, like, I guess the spine to stick up for himself, so it makes it kind of tragic that they kind of take his voice away literally. So there's some cool aspects about it. I kind of hope they don't resolve it too quickly. I think that would be an interesting longer term dynamic, but I get the feeling Dread might be one of those belts that kind of bounces around from, like, different person for different mantles. But I think there's some cool ideas there, and the fight was cool. Again, seeing Gotchard get his ass handed to him was cool. Again, just the villains, I think in general, are pretty well established as a threat. And like them even like taking Valivard out and everything, it really showed them overpowering the heroes completely in a pretty cool way. There was also a funny moment at the beginning with the betrayed lady, or the betrayer lady, where Rin has this flashback and she's like, I understand now, it's because you were under mind control. She's like, no, I'm just evil. I have to say though, even though it was very random, him just getting inspired by this bond he's building with the UFO because he's the chosen one, that he pulls out the sword from like this light cloud. I'm like, how is that just... I hate when a toku series has systems that are somehow clearly made to a degree, although we don't know where the Gotchard driver comes from completely, and then they also get one just out of thin air. It just bothers me. You have to give them props for showing restraint. I'm shocked, based on the series track record with forms, that they didn't debut UFO right at the end. They're going to build up to that next episode, obviously, and they kind of got around that by like, hey, we still debuted the toy, but I'm surprised that they had the restraint to do that. But yeah. Basically, and then you also end the episode with generic Toku dialogue of Valvarad being like, it's because you guys were defeated because you believe in generic Toku values, and then Gotchard's like, I'm gonna continue to believe in those generic Toku values. That's another thing, is like the dialogue and conflicts between like Valvarad and Gotchard, the villains and Gotchard, is like the most like boilerplate generic Toku dialogue you could get. It's like just there's no like flavor to it. There's no distinction. Like I was thinking about comparing it to Saber. Like I think Saber's saving grace is I was interested in its mythology, and there were some unique things about that where I don't know. But again, this was overall one of the stronger episodes of the series. There was a lot to enjoy. There's some good stuff going on. There's at least some stuff going on to keep things more interesting. But I just really feel, to sum up my thoughts, that even though this was a strong episode, I think it would be supported by a stronger series build-up. Like we had 10 episodes building up to this. I think if they had done a better job building this up, it could have been more impactful. I almost feel like the Sabi character should have been introduced as like Hotaro's friend from the beginning or something. But I don't know. What do you guys think of this week's episode? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.